The time is just gone 9:34 a.m. as we continue this morning with news and views. And breaking news this morning has been the ANC opting for South Africa to pull out of the International Criminal Court over unfair treatment. This was a statement that was made by the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who confirmed that the ANC has decided again that South Africa must withdraw as a member of the ICC. And to unpack this, we're joined by my guest this morning, Gwinyai Regis Taruvinga, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Humanities Graduate Center at Wits University. Gwinyai, good morning to you. Dr. Gwinyai, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Inet. How are you?
Yes, doing very well, thanks. And thank you for your time and joining us. And we've seen hot off the press this ANC decision to pull out of the ICC, talking about unfair treatment. Now, I'm not too sure how much this has got to do with regard to the warrant of arrest of the Russian President Vladimir Putin, because we know that there is a lot of talk about him coming to South Africa.
Yes, most certainly. But I think just before I think we actually get into the element of Vladimir Putin, I think we also need to look at it from a historical perspective. If you remember, a few years ago, I think a warrant of arrest was also issued for Omar al-Bashir when he visited South Africa. I think it was under President Zuma's presidency, and we saw that again. That's when this discussion about the ICC and South Africa pulling out. This is one of the first times it then came to the fore. And this is the same situation that's unfolding at the moment, whereby I think the ANC, I think from President Ramaphosa's statement, citing unfair treatment, I think also had to do with that debate about the ICC, and which also broadly speaks to how in many cases, especially from African countries, they view the ICC as a tool that often targets particular leaders who have bad relations or weak relations with the West, as we're currently seeing with Vladimir Putin.
Yes, and this is where the problem comes in when we speak about unfair treatment, where the ICC has been very selective in the past. You mentioned the example of Umar al Bashir, but we know that there have been many other matters that have gone to the ICC, which they have largely ignored. And even when one looks at some of the other countries, when one looks at even people like Tony Blair, for instance, when we look at even the Americans themselves, for invading Iraq. We see what is happening, playing out in Israel and Palestine. People like Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, these are people that the ICC has never ever called upon to prosecute. And I think this is where the major concern comes in terms of how selective the ICC has been in the past.
Yes, yes, most certain. I remember a few years ago, I think I can't remember which African president it was, and one of the points he made was that in theory, is a very good organization, and it provides us with institutional arrangements that will prevent, for example, what we saw in Rwanda with the genocide in 1994. But however, as you've rightfully stated, what we are now seeing is that indeed it is selective in certain leaders that it claims have committed certain crimes. And I think this is the gripe that is that many African countries have, especially with currently with the ANC, as we're seeing in South Africa, to say that it's fair and fine to have these institutional arrangements, but they need to be applied, and they need to be applied fairly. Because as you've rightfully said, with leaders like I think George W. Bush, Tony Blair, these are leaders who many viewed have committed certain crimes, but nothing has happened. And just to add to that as well, we see that a country like the United States of America doesn't actually follow the ICC. It just also does not is actually I'm not sure if they've actually signed the Rome Statute, but I don't think they have. And this again speaks to how there are double standards when it comes to the institution of the ICC.
Yes, and also this whole question about the ICC putting pressure on certain countries like South Africa, and the Umar al-Bashir case stands out. But again, the whole question surrounding defining defining what is unfair treatment, And this is a definition that the ICC needs to get right. When they talk about war crimes, this is a definition that the ICC can be needs to get right as well. I mean, they can't define war crimes like in the case of Russia, Vladimir Putin, saying that he's committed war crimes, he's committed crimes against children, and all of that. But these are, and history has proven over and over again that war crimes have been committed by many, many, many people in the past. We know, for instance, in the past, the Serbian, I think it was the Serbian leader, in terms of what had happened in the Balkans, what had happened with Bosnia as well. Well, he was taken to the ICC, but no other European leader of note has actually been taken to the ICC for similar, or I would say even worse crimes. So that's why I say that definition needs to be correct.
Exactly, and I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with the ICC, is that there isn't a clear definition of what war crimes are, and even in many cases when there is a definition, you find that Western countries or Western leaders could actually fall into the trap of having committed crimes, and this is one of the challenges that the ICC continues to face, whereby by failing to have a clear definition for war crimes, it makes it very easy for them to target certain leaders, which is what we're seeing. Hence, I think the argument then goes back to how many people argue to say that the ICC is very selective, which almost makes it very ineffective, because if people are seeing it in that way, it then almost fails to serve its purpose.
Yes, and also, we've seen that many countries have opted not to be part of the ICC, and even this includes even countries like India, Israel. I mean, these are countries that the ICC can say what they want to, they can do what they want to, and they basically ignore them. Says, listen, we are not part. We are out of the ICC, so you can do absolutely nothing. You cannot prosecute us. Should Africa be looking at a similar scenario as a
I think
continent?
Yes, I think it is fair that Africa should look inwardly, actually, to actually use its own institutions to address some of the challenges that we face. So, for example, if you look at the ICC and the issue currently at hand with Vladimir Putin, many are arguing to say that the ICC doesn't quite understand some of the dynamics that have to do with diplomacy. So I think it was Professor David Gwinyai in his interview that he did with the SABC last night. One of the points he made in his interview concerning this issue was that Vladimir Putin is seen as probably one of the strongest leaders in the world, and he has access to, for example, to nuclear weapons. And arresting him, as the ICC is asking South Africa to do, would be seen by Russia as a declaration of war. That's meaning that the ICC does not have the understanding of some of the dynamics from a diplomatic perspective. But that being said, when we link it to the African continent, it is important that our institutions, such as the African Union, have tribunals, have courts, and I think they do have their own courts, but there's a challenge when it comes to implementation. So I think it's important that the African continent looks inwardly, so that we can have our own mechanisms to address such issues that are at hand, such as the issues that we're currently seeing. Because if we continuously outsource the challenges that we face, if we continuously outsource and give room to institutions like the ICC, we'll just continue to be targets for the currently seeing at the moment, where South Africa has been put in a corner, and because of that, they're now having to, look at and explore the option of ICC.
Well, Dr. Gwinyai, I would love to engage more with you, but I'm just looking at your picture as well. I see the gunner's badge on your top, and let's hope we do well tonight. All the
Indeed,
best to you, and thank you for
indeed.
your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care. Dr. Gwinyai Regis Taruvinga with us this morning on the whole question about South Africa opting out of the International Criminal Court. Are we going to go for a break? We're coming back. We still got one or two other important issues to unpack until the end of the show this morning.